Hello, welcome to Lore Master's Lair. I'm your Lore Master, here today for our final pre-release look at Tian Xia, the street date for the World Guide being this Wednesday. So how do we wrap this up, especially with the book already out in the wild? Well, by connecting tabletop to the real world, of course. Today I'll be going through some of the monsters of Asian mythology which have been added as creatures into Pathfinder, whether through bestiaries or back matter, and connect them in turn to their real-life counterparts. Without further ado, let's get started. First, let's get a few big names out of the way. Only we already have an entire video connecting them to their real-life counterparts. And Tian Xia, we have an entire video on vampires where they make an appearance. To save us some time today, we will point you to those videos if that's what you're interested in. In addition, we will not be looking at the real-world inspirations for playable ancestries. No Kitsune or Tengu in this one, especially since they can be found elsewhere. And we have confirmation that Tsuki Mogami are going to be a puppet heritage. Today and other heritages we know will be taking the back seat as well. Only creatures today are those that you fight. Or befriend, I guess, because first we have Beto-Beto-san, also known as the Footstep Monster. Found in the Japanese prefectures of Nara and Shizuoka, this is a monster which has no known physical form, just the sound of footsteps following one in the night. This is an interesting one to start on as it is completely harmless, and the best way to deal with it is to step aside and tell it that it can pass. It's a sweetheart to start us off, really. Then we have ourselves what is known as a peng, a giant bird from Chinese myth. Well, sort of a bird. It is a giant fish, which grows to be a giant bird. It is actually in the name, which combines the character for fish with the character for bird. The story it's from tells of the trip it needs to take to the southern darkness, what we now know in the modern world as South Pole. And it's doing so by catching itself on a massive whirlwind, a massive waterspout, to travel untold distances to finally achieve its avian form. The story is actually a story of its smaller creatures laughing at the ridiculous distances and a comparison between a grand scale. But it makes an interesting creature nonetheless. So, one final peaceful one, the In Myeonjo. This being from Korean mythology, this is a bird with a human face, usually female. Appearances of the bird date back to the kingdoms of Goguryeo and Bakje, usually appearing on Korean tombs. Some think this is because the bird represents longevity, while others connect it to the mount of the Buddha, the Kalabinka. Regardless, it is a creature which has the power of connecting the sky to the land, and was prevalent in the recent Korean Winter Olympics as a symbol. So leaving behind those who are more playful, next is the Hyakuma. Another one from Japan. These creatures are lumps of flesh with 100 eyeballs across its body. They wander around graveyards and temples, acting as a guardian, with some stories saying that they were once a guardian deity who has been corrupted over time. This is the important part, as they do not actively seek out humans to attack. However, if their area of protection is intruded upon, their eyes are said to have the power to see what is hidden, to glimpse the future, and to petrify. We then have another Japanese yokai whose appearance is well known, the Woko Tokubi. This is the name for two creatures, a woman whose neck extends to unnatural length, and a woman whose head flies around unattached. The oldest of these stories is the detached head, which flies around and sometimes does misdeeds and drinks blood as you do. The extending neck version comes from interpretations of the original flying around, but with the detached part accidentally left out. These are actually also famed in real life, being creatures who were used as exhibits in magic shows and freak shows. Faked, of course, but still the Japanese version of some of the most famed sideshows we offer in the States. Well, offered, I think, well, I'm not going to go into that. Anyway, also, in this in-between area of dangerous or not, let's look at two cross East Asian symbols. The first of them is the three-legged crow. The one which brings us here is the Chinese Sanzhu, which was a symbol related to the sun, and also one of the 12 symbols which were emblazoned on the emperor's clothes. In myth, it was one of 10 crows carrying 10 suns, but when the legendary archer Ho Yi shot down 9, it was the one that was left remaining. The Japanese equivalent is the Yatagarasu, which, as opposed to a sun symbol, serves as a divine messenger. Third, Korea has the Samjak-o, a symbol of the great king's authority, which was said to live in the sun. Then we have foxes. Yes, I said we would not be talking about kitsune today, but Pathfinder has established Gimiho are separate creatures. Related to the Japanese kitsune, the Chinese Hule Jing, and the Vietnamese Ho Li Thin, the Korean Gumilho goes through the same basic principles. They are shapeshifters and or possessors who take the form of humans, almost always beautiful women because, of course, and they seduce men because, of course. What makes Gumhyo different from its counterparts are Yiwu Gusle. Anyway, fox beads. These beads allow the Gumhyo to the ability to drain the power from someone through a kiss. In exchange, if the beads are stolen and eaten, the person who consumes them gains vast knowledge. Then we have the dangerous shapeshifters known as the Jogumo. Translated roughly to prostitute spider, these creatures take on the form of human women in order to lure in their prey. That said, there are a few lesser known details of this depiction of the spiders. One is the tendency of being surrounded by its young spiders, all which are connected to their mother by silk threads. Another is for the mother and child to have the ability to breathe fire. Then we have the kappa, which translates to river child. They are roughly turtle-like, with shells on their backs, and they run the gamut from being relatively harmless to drowning children to maliciously stealing one's souls through their butt. And as you might guess, legends lean towards the more dangerous ones, while the kid-friendly ones are more modern creations. They love both cucumbers and sumo wrestling, and all the strength comes from the bowl of water on their head, which they tend not to be small enough to not be tricked to bow. We next find ourselves dealing with the Korobozo, which directly translates into black monk. While sometimes an actual monk, the bozu part is connected to many yokai, and could just as simply mean stranger. Korobozu, however, are 100% monk, having the bald head and shrouded in black monk robes. There are two separate tales of this creature. One had it appear in homes at night, draining the victim of its breath until they grow sick and die. The other are hunters shooting a black shape in the forests, thinking it's a black bear, only for it to expand to giant size. Another dangerous one, depending on if you're a celestial body, is the Bolge, the Korean fire dog who chases the moon and the sun. Storytellers of the Lord of the Dark Realm, one of the cosmic regions in Korean mythology, who desired the sun and the moon for himself, his realm not having them, and sending the fire dogs to collect it. However, each time the sun was too hot or the moon too cold, and the beast was forced to let go. The time it was holding on to the celestial bodies were then the reasons for full or partial eclipses. There was also a real-world Korean dog dog breed, which was named after these dogs, based on these dogs having red coats and amber eyes. We're getting close to the end, so let us go with one of my favorite monsters Paizo has ever made, the Chusaki Onna, or the slit-mouthed woman. This is a modern creature from Japan, only appearing in the last few hundred years. This is the ghost of a woman wearing a mask over her mouth, who appears on dark, foggy nights and asks the lone person around if they think she is pretty. And if she is told yes, she then reveals her mouth, split ear to ear, asking again, "How about now?" With your answer, of course, ending with a knife in your flesh, one way or the other. And to end this, we have Orochi as a creature. Let's take a look at him. A giant snake with 8 heads, and the closest thing Japan has to a local dragon, as opposed to Asian dragons, but as an individual dragon. Orochi in legend would demand villagers to give him a virgin sacrifice each year. When the god Susanoo, exiled from the heavenly courts, heard of this, he managed to set up a plan to get the beast intoxicated so he could cut off its heads. And as many other heroes had done before him in other myths, of course. He also found within its tail the legendary sword, the Kusanagi, which would eventually be given to his sister where it became a treasure of the Japanese royal families. Which brings us to the end of this video. There are plenty of monsters from the Philippines, which have been added to Paizo as well, but we will split them off as a separate topic I might do one day. No promises though. Though it might be good if I do an individual video on Minata in the future to add those at the time, but I'm getting ahead of myself. And with that, we have taken a look through a good chunk of Tian Xia as we knew it before the new book, which was a place I had planned to end this month, but I have decided to end this with one more video on docket for next week. Hopefully. Depends on mail. And as a live stream to boot. Again, depending on the mail. Either way, see you then.